I remember reading somewhere that says watching your partner give birth is like watching your favourite pub burn down.
That's a really good analogy. We should suggest at this stage, like being PC reasons, don't go and find another pub.
No, definitely don't. Don't go and drink in another pub just because the previous pub's not looking great at the minute, all right? When you go from 2 kids to 3, imagine a nightmare scenario where you've got 3 young children. All 3 run in opposite directions. All 3 run somewhere potentially hazardous. Where do you run?
Your 2 favourite children.
You've effectively got to decide which one you're not that bothered about keeping.
That's true.
I don't think it's a good look as a parent, personally, if your 5-year-old in the supermarket turns round and calls you a dick. Or fucking arsehole or something like that.
Yeah.
Look at me showing off at the swear words, I know. Hello, and welcome to the Mildly Controversial Podcast. This week, we have got the Mildly Controversial Podcast Guide to Parenting.
Oh, fuck.
Okay? So, I wouldn't normally suggest that you take any advice from myself or Baz, but what we're going to do in this one is, I remember back to when we first had kids, not me and Baz, we haven't got them yet. That's to come yet. I've not asked him yet. But I remember thinking back to when we had kids and all the advice we got. With hindsight, most of it was bollocks and completely unnecessary. So Baz and I, with our wealth of experience of being parents, we're going to give you, if you are expecting a kid, if you're trying for a kid, if you've just had a kid, I genuinely think you will find some of this stuff enlightening and entertaining. If you've already had kids, you will relate to a lot of this as well. So hopefully it's going to be a really entertaining one. So just before we start, though, this is basically the bit where if we did advertising, there would be an advert in this slot now. Okay,
Brilliant.
But we don't do advertising. And that's not because we've got anything against it, because we love the idea of people giving us money. So it's not because we've got anything against it, it's because we haven't sold any advertising space in this yet, because we want to build it to a good size before we do. But it did get me thinking that we have been producing quality content for 2 years, and we have never asked for a single penny from anybody who's listening or who's watching. And that's about to change, not in a massive way. All we're doing is we have set up a page on buymeacoffee.com. Okay. So if you go to buymeacoffee.com/mildlypod, or if you go to the website, which is daddancer.co.uk/podcast, there's a link on there as well. All we're asking is, if you are entertained, if you do enjoy this, if you nip to that link and you click on there, if you donate us a £5, we'll buy a drink with it. And you know what? On our next show, we'll tell you who bought each drink as well. So you'll get a little shout out for that.
That's a cracking idea.
There you go. That's it, all out of the way. All I'm thinking is, like, I've been paying quite a lot of money to produce this thing, and I've never asked for a penny yet. So I thought, fuck it, I'm going to ask them. So if you want to buy us a drink, Baz or I, or both of us, head to that link, buymeacoffee.com/mildlypod, or daddancer.co.uk/podcast, and there's a link in there that says, buy us a beer. If you want us to keep producing this podcast, but by the way, we have no intention of stopping doing this because we fucking love it. But if you want to keep us going, buy us a pint. And, to be fair, that's all you have to do with me. If you want me to do anything, just buy me a pint. If you've got any requests and you want to buy us a pint at that link, just tell us what you want me to do. I'll do it. I'll come around and I'll trim your edges also. That's not a euphemism, by the way. I don't know why I went there with that one.
And if you are watching on YouTube, I'll continue to wear stupid outfits like this just for you.
I didn't even mention that because I'm so focused on the audio podcast. But yeah, for those who are listening on the audio, which is the majority of you, I'm struggling to describe what you look like, Baz. And it looks a bit like a mouse. Is that what it is?
It's a bear.
Oh, is it?
They're very similar, apart from in size. So.
Yeah. Well, exactly, and you're only small, so it does look like a mouse.
Dig one, love it.
We're only a few minutes in, Baz, and I've had to dig about the height. The age is coming soon. I just don't know when.
Yeah.
I don't know when I'm going to take the piss out of how old you are, but it's coming. It's just not yet. All right.
Right. So what are we doing then?
Right then, should we get back to the topic we said we were going to do? Right, good stuff. So yeah, the first thing I want to do, I want to tell people that if you are trying for kids or you're expecting kids, you will get loads of people that just tell you like loads of different things that are just fucking ignore them. We're going to bring you some real life advice here, okay? And the first thing is not wanting to spoil it or make you worry about anything, but I firmly believe that anybody who says the birth of their children was the best day of their life is a fucking liar.
Oh God, yeah, 100%.
Do you know what? It's not even close to the best day of your life. And I'm going to go even further. I'd say it's closer to being one of the worst days of your life than it is one of the best days of your life.
Even if you've struggled to have children, getting to that point, the actual physics and all of the sort of trauma that goes with it, that's just fucking shit, isn't it?
Just the actual childbirth, right? And look, and ladies, people with uteruses, just listen. Don't shout at me now for what I'm about to say now, but it's fucking traumatic, right? And I know I'm not trying to push something the size of a melon out or something out of a gap the size of a lemon, as I've heard it described before. I know that physically it isn't my pain. But it is the most traumatic experience I've been through, and I've been through it 3 times. I personally panicked from the moment I heard my wife was pregnant to the moment my child was born. I worried.
That's fair.
I worried the whole time, right? Worried from, I was going to say from conception to that. There wasn't too much worrying going on at conception.
Well, you didn't know, did you?
Well, there was some panic, but that wasn't related to having children. But yeah, I just worried the whole time. And then the whole, from a father's point of view, the whole childbirth thing is just, you're seeing somebody you love more than life itself go through more pain than you would ever imagine on your worst enemy, and it's heartbreaking because you can't. If you could take the pain away from them, I'd probably take about quarter of it. Do you know what I mean? I'm not taking it all. I'm not stupid. But no, you're in a position where you feel completely helpless. And anyway, so that's the first one. So hopefully, if you are expecting a kid, if you're about to give birth yourself, sorry. I've probably just worried you about it. But what I will say is that particular day is horrendous because, I didn't sleep because it was like, it was an overnight thing. So I lost a night of sleep. I saw my wife I saw imagery of my wife I never want to see again. I worried that things were going to go wrong because that's just the type of kind of mind, the way my mind works. It was just horrible. It was horrible, horrible, horrible. But having kids is brilliant. Okay, having kids is one of the best things you can ever do. All right, I'm not one of these people who's just so obsessed with kids.
Yeah,
that's all they talk about, and we'll come. I've seen
your content online, and you're clearly not.
Yeah, we'll come on to them later. But it's but no, having kids is brilliant. Every day gets better and better and better, right? So by definition, the first day is the shittest. All right. So if you're going through it, maybe you're listening to our. Imagine if somebody's listening to our podcast now while they're in labour. It does get better. I promise. All right, it does get better. Today's going to be shit, and then not going to lie, you're going to have a few shit weeks where you don't sleep and you feel like death. But it does get better. I promise you.
Men, if you're listening to this and you're in this position right now and you're at the business end, it doesn't stay with you forever. Trust me, because you will go there again.
I remember reading somewhere that says watching your partner give birth is like watching your favourite pub burn down.
That's a really good analogy.
It is a very good analogy. But, it's to continue with the analogy, if your favourite pub does burn down and they rebuild it, and it's as good as it was before, you'll still go in, won't you? So that's
and also, we should suggest at this stage, like being PC reasons, don't go and find another pub.
No, definitely don't. You know, whilst your pub's burnt down, right? Whilst your favourite pub's burnt down, don't go and drink in another pub just because the previous pub's not looking great at the minute. All right. So I think we've come full circle and we've finished that analogy now. All right.
Beautifully.
So now I've told you that first day is horrendous. I'm going to come out with a confession here.
Oh, love a confession.
I don't think, and this is kind of. So, like I say, the first bit is difficult. The first few weeks is difficult because you lose sleep and all that. And I found it. I don't know what's wrong with me, right? And it is definitely on me. This, but because I don't like young babies.
Yeah, I'm the same.
Because they just don't do anything. Do you know what I mean? And as a father, it's not the job of the child to entertain me and give me stuff back, right? But I'm not going to lie. It's much better once they get to about 8 months and you get giggles, you get laughs, you can teach them stuff.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You can mess with their heads, that kind of stuff. That's when it gets good. So I'm only being honest when I say this, right? And this is genuine truth. I don't think I genuinely loved my children until they were about 6 months old.
Yeah, it's because they didn't have any personality up to a certain stage, did they?
I endured them.
Yeah.
I was grateful for them. I was grateful for them. But I just didn't build a strong connection until they were about 6 months old. And then you get like the cute things they do and they're messing about you can do and all that. And there's there's a stage you will go through. Here's another tip for people who are either have got very young kids or are expecting. You go through a stage where you think that stuff in 3 years' time you'll think is horrendous and you'll bollock the kid for, you think is really cute, right? Because I remember when Molly was about 6 months old, right? She'd only just started eating soft food, and maybe not 6 months, 9 months. I've got no idea of timescales with kids, by the way. So
yeah, let's pretend 6
months.
Right.
Is it 9 months when they start eating proper food?
I think if it's not,
fucking neither of us. We've teed this up like we're fucking experts about parenting, and we can't even remember what age kids start to eat.
Well, I think 9 months sounds about right.
Something like that, anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, so my middle child, my beautiful daughter, was the way I said that sounded like the other one's not beautiful. That's not like... No. Whoa. I didn't mean that. They're both beautiful.
Can we mention your children's names?
My middle daughter Molly is beautiful.
Yeah.
And Charlie is also beautiful. He's my eldest, but this was Molly, right? She's about 9 months old and she's eating a yogurt, and we turned round, just chatting and stuff, and turned back round, and it looked like she'd submerged her head in it. She couldn't have done because it was only in a pot. Do you know what I mean? But it was literally, she was blinking through the yogurt. She'd put it all over her face and her head. And we were like, oh, how funny is that? Cute. You know, like getting the photos, getting the cameras out, filming it. I've still got video of it now. And it's just like, oh, look at this. How cute is that? Oh, your kid does that at 3. Watch how fucking mad you get about it. What the fuck have you done? Why is it? Oh, it's in your hair. Why have you done that, you idiot? Get upstairs and in the bath. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So be prepared to have a proper mood flip between something that's cute when they're of a certain age, maybe 9 months, but then once they get to like 2, 3, all that stops, and that stops being cute. It just becomes being a pain in the arse that you got to tidy up after.
I genuinely think this will resonate with a lot of people, and one of the things that we are good at on this on our podcast is the fact we're dead honest. We don't sort of do this is what people want to hear. So yeah, I genuinely believe that across the globe there will be many parents going, yeah, I completely fucking agree with that.
Absolutely, yeah. If you're in the States, it might be peanut butter or something, but still,
yes.
Quick shout out to the people in the States because, year to date, so for the month of January, we've got more listeners in the USA than we have in the UK.
Hi, all.
It's been a. Please don't leave us because Baz has got a terrible US accent, by the way. But anyway, hello. Thank you for being here. You're very welcome. We very much appreciate you being here. But yes, we've got it's pretty much bang equal between USA listeners and UK listeners with people from around the globe. So Australia, New Zealand, and lots of other countries.
I'd be quite interested to hear after this podcast whether parenting advice is different in other countries, because obviously we're relating it to ourselves in the UK. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that there will be some different sort of advice which we're not aware of for American sort of parents and Australian parents and Filipino parents. I'm pretty sure that it will differ. What's your next bit of advice then?
Okay, so my next piece of advice for people who are considering having children is think long and hard about it. And like I said, I do love my kids, but I did just today read an article that says the average cost to bring up a child from birth to 18 years is £206,000. So it's about $250,000 for our people in the States.
Yeah.
If you're thinking of having 3 kids, that's $750,000, right? Or £600,000. Okay, so I'm just thinking, I'm not saying you shouldn't have kids. Having kids is brilliant. Okay, I love my kids. I love the time I spend with my kids. And I love everything about them. And I love who they are. But I could have had 3 houses.
Yeah,
it's, you know,
or one big fuck off,
or one massive one. Oh, well, to be up here, I could have had hundreds of them. But yeah, just think about that. You know, when you are thinking of that, and you know, it's something to think about as well. If you've had 1 or 2 kids, it's something to think about when you just think, should we have another kid? If you're saying like, shall we have another kid? I would advise you to add to the end of that sentence, shall we have another kid or another house?
Yeah, so I'm aware of certain religions, and I won't mention which ones they are, but there's lots of kind of religions that don't believe in contraception. So they end up having loads and loads of children, you know, like families of 10. That cost must be fucking absolutely astronomical. I don't know how people do that.
I think, well, I mean, I've got an example of that right across the road from us because, as people probably know, I live in Ireland, and the family sizes in Ireland, with them being Catholic, are traditionally larger than Church of England or whatever. And other religions. But the lady across from us has, in the last 6 months, I think, given birth to her 7th child.
Wow.
Which I personally think is fucking insane. But she's, but the thing is, right? And this is where it's like we'll talk about multiple births now, or multiple children now. So I've got a few things to say on that. But she's got 7, but they range in age from like 19 down to 3 months or 6 months or whatever. So the older kids can look after the younger kids. So once you get to having loads of them, and you've got some that are older, they kind of look after themselves.
Yeah.
But when you've got 1, you can look after them. When you've got 2, assuming you're in a partnership and there's 2 parents cohabiting, then you've got, you know, you can look after them easy enough. And this is a piece of advice my brother told me. He said, don't have 3 kids. He's got 2 kids. And the reason he stopped at 2 is he said, if you go from 2 to 3, you go from man-to-man marking to zonal. And zonal defense doesn't ever work. It's always a disaster. So, and I mean, he obviously used a football or soccer analogy on that one. But here's a kind of listen, this is what happens when you go from 2 to 3 children. What I'm suggesting is having 3 or 4 is kind of where the problems lie. If you're daft enough to want 5, 6, or 7 or more, the older kids will look after, and I can see there's a benefit in that. But going from 2 to 3 is the tipping point for me, because, like I say, you go from man-to-man marking to zonal, which never works and is always more complicated. Nobody knows their role. Nobody knows who they're marking. Right? It gets complicated. But also, here's something to think about. When you go from 2 kids to 3, imagine a nightmare scenario where you've got 3 young children. All 3 run in opposite directions. All 3 run somewhere potentially hazardous, and there's 2 parents.
Yeah.
Where do you run?
Your 2 favourite children.
And do you know what, Baz? It comes down to that. You're going to have to pick. I was going to say, actually, you're going to have to pick your 2 favourites. But when there's 3, it doesn't work like that, does it? You've effectively got to decide which one you're not that bothered about keeping.
That's true.
Do you know what I mean? Because the other 2 might not even be your favourites. You've got to make a snap decision. The 3 have run off, potentially dangerous, and you've gone, shit, there's only 2 of us. You've got to make a snap decision. You've got to decide immediately which one of them are not that bothered if they don't come back.
Or the option is you realise you should know at this stage which is the slowest one. You go after them first, then chase after the other one.
See, because they're not old enough to gather each other around, where if you've got loads, do you know what I mean? But, you know, I can't remember what the name of it was, but I remember seeing a documentary about a family that had a lot of children. And they were going on a trip at Christmas. And unfortunately, one of them, they miscounted as they got into the minibus on the way to the airport, and one of them got left at home without any parental supervision. It was quite a harrowing story.
Yeah.
It was. It was Home Alone. Sorry.
It took me a while to get that. By the way,
I can see the cogs turning in your head, Baz.
You can hear them.
Right. So that's what I'm saying, is that if you go from 2 to 3, then that brings in problems. And also on a practical level, one of Emma's sisters has got 3 kids, and she said that going from 2 to 3 means that when you go on holiday, if you go from 2 kids to 3, you've got to book 2 hotel rooms.
Yeah, there you go.
And normally adjoining hotel rooms, and so you've just doubled the price of your hotel. So I'm not saying you shouldn't have 3 kids. This is life advice from a couple of old farts who are saying, just think, right? If you've got 2 kids and you love those 2 kids to bits, do you want to go to 3, potentially have to decide which one to lose, double the price of your holiday, find life more complicated because there's 2 of you trying to look after 3, or do you want 2 kids in a house? Just saying. I've also, Baz, I've also just realised that I'm the 3rd of 3.
Oh yeah.
It's not like I've just realised it. I've known that for 48 years.
It's just dawned on you, though, isn't it?
It's just dawned on me that I'm telling people to think really hard about having a 3rd child, and I am the 3rd child. So,
as a father that only had 1 child, I never had to make these decisions. But I can hear what you're saying. So if you get to 3, you may as well just sort of push on and have another 2 and get 5. That way, it justifies having another hotel room, and you got the oldest one who can look after at least 2 of those.
There you go. I think I think we'll adopt that as the official mildly controversial podcast advice. That if you are going to go beyond 2 kids, if you're stupid enough to go beyond 2 kids, be really fucking stupid and have tons of them, because at least they can look after each other once they get a bit older.
Well, I think there's also something to consider is like the hand-me-down kind of scenario. Whereas so I was the middle child of 3. I was the only boy, so I had an older sister and a younger sister. And obviously I wasn't subject to the hand-me-downs. Well, I mean, if you look at me now, maybe I was.
I was going to say, Baz, that it might explain a lot. Not in a bad way. I think your sartorial elegance is phenomenal.
It's the skirt use, I think, isn't it?
Well, you're quite often wearing kilts. It could explain it.
But the other thing, there was quite a big gap between my older sister and my younger sister. There was no chance of my younger sister ever wearing my older sister's clothes, because there was something like almost sort of 10 years between them. So I can't imagine my younger sister ever wanting to wear my older sister's clothes.
When you say you can't imagine her ever wanting to, as the third of three, that doesn't come into it, Baz. Because my eldest brother is 6 years older than me.
Yeah.
And I definitely got all the shit that he used to wear. This was in the 70s when nobody wasted any money, which isn't a bad thing. It was a much less wasteful era to live in, which is people are trying to get back to it. But as a young child, as a 6-year-old, when you're being forced to wear stuff that looks old and smells old because it's been in a bin bag in the loft for 6 years. I remember wearing lots of hand-me-down clothes. So yeah, I think you're right. I think if I have a bunch of kids, then obviously you just buy one set of clothes and pass it down the line. That's not a bad shout.
So it's not really advice. It's something I did when I had a young child, and when I was left with her and she was teething, I used wine as a numbing agent. And I'm sure that other people have used like spirits and stuff, but I was actually putting wine in her bottle.
Right. Okay. Well, I mean, I do have a story related to that that will make you feel not as bad, because my dad did the same thing with my the brother of mine who's 5 years older, Chris. The story goes that this is in the 70s, so he would have been a baby he was born in 69, so he would have been, this is very early 70s.
Yeah.
My mum had been struggling with Chris. He'd been crying a lot as a very young baby and wouldn't settle. And my dad just went, look, you go upstairs, I'll settle him. You go upstairs, get some sleep, I'll settle him. Apparently, half an hour later, my dad goes up into bed and gets into bed. And my mum goes, oh, that's brilliant. You getting to settle? Went, yeah, no problem. So, how did you manage it? Said, I just put a little bit of shot of whiskey in his milk. My mum shits herself, bolts out of bed, picks my brother up and fills his baby's bottle with salt water to try and make him be sick. So she's feeding him salt water to make him throw up this whiskey. And in the end, apparently, he just drank the whole bottle of salt water, burped, and just like smiled at my mum, pissed. It's like, I'm not throwing up. That was lovely.
You won't find this advice in any books, by the way.
That is definitely not our official advice. But back in the day, that was kind of an acceptable way to treat your children.
Well, it sort of moves on to this other thing, which is, do you let your babies cry themselves to sleep, or do you go in and constantly sort of like soothe them? Because there's two schools of thoughts on this. And there's one where you just leave them and eventually they'll go to sleep. I always found that wasn't the case. They would just keep fucking, or Brian would just keep crying for hours. And you go, and you got the whole thing with the two parents kind of going, oh, no, let's leave it a bit longer. And then it's 5 hours later and you're like, surely we're going to sort of interject at this point and go in and do a bit of soothing.
See, I was always the one that would be like, even after 5 hours, like, if we go in now, she's won. I was like, she'll be lying there going, wah, wah, wah. You walk in to go, I knew I'd win. I knew you'd come in. To be fair, it took a lot longer than I thought, but I knew you'd come in. Yeah, I was never good at that. I was never good at a united front between me and the missus, because the missus would always want to cave before me, and I'd be like, no, we must not do this. And you know what? The poor girl was probably 8 months old, and in my new dad head, this 8-month-old had concocted this really elaborate scheme to get attention, as opposed to just being, I'm a baby, I need comforting. I was like, no, she knows that if she carries on, she's don't. If you're giving on this, then you'll give in on everything. She'll have won, and she'll know, and she'll have us she'll have us under her thumb.
Right. So I've got a question for you, Mike. So, as a father of two, and what's the difference between Molly and
father
Shay?
of the three?
Oh yeah, no, I'm talking about the two that were sort of like.
Oh yeah, then yeah.
So what's the difference between Molly and Shay?
One's got a penis,
Yes.
and one doesn't.
That's a controversial opinion.
Do you want me to be more specific?
I meant in age. Sorry.
Oh, in age. Sorry, in age. I genuinely didn't understand that you meant the difference in age. Shay's just turned 13. Molly turns 16 in June, so 2.5 years.
So in the 3 years between them,
Hmm.
did you change your tact, or did you change anything when Shay came around with your experience, like with Molly? Did you go from being she's not going to win to, and particularly because Shay's a boy, did you have a sort of difference of the way you treated Shay?
I don't think so. I think with our second, I call it our second. Like I've got three kids, and all of them are a first something. Okay.
Yeah.
So Charlie, who's now 25, was my first.
Yeah.
Molly, who's 15, is our first.
Yeah.
And Shay is the first boy. So they've all got a little first thing, and that's why I was like, I don't want any more anyway because we've run out of firsts. I think with Shay, we knew more what we were doing because, like I say, I had Charlie when I was 23. And you
don't fuck all of that stage, don't you?
No, I mean, I was still a fucking child myself. I definitely wasn't father material at 23. And then when it came around again, I think because obviously it was with a different mother, the fact I don't remember anything from first time round, I think was probably a benefit because I wasn't like, because can you imagine if I'd have been like, oh no, you don't do it like that. You do it like, can you imagine what a twat of a dad I would have been?
You'd have hated yourself.
Imagine what a twat of a husband I would have been if I'd have turned around to the mother of my children and said, oh no, we didn't do it like that last time. That's not the best way to do that. But people, if you are expecting kids, that is what your parents and your siblings will do. They'll come in and they'll go, ooh, you don't do it like that. Ignore them. Right? As long as you keep your children alive and happy, well fed, well cared for, warm at night and happy, do what you want. Because do you know what? There's too much. There's too much. Do it like this. Don't do it like that. And parents just fucking stress about everything. And do you know what? When you look back on it, you just think it really didn't matter that much, did it?
The truth of the matter is, like, people have been having babies for, well, let's be honest, hundreds of thousands of years, or like going back even further than that. And most of those children, as we know by the number of people that are alive today, survived. Like,
you say that, Baz, but back in the day, it was like fucking seahorses. You had to have about 15 for one to survive.
I know, I wasn't going that far back. Not back to my day, obviously. But so here's a weird thing. So you were the youngest child of three.
Yeah.
You didn't have the benefit that I had of being the middle child, where I experienced a baby in my life as a child. So I learned some things that you wouldn't have done, because I learned how to hold a baby when I was still a child. And I think some of the most important advice you get given is, watch their head because it's wobbly. So it's one of the things I remember being as a new dad was like, obviously, and let's face it, it's commonplace. It's not a secret.
It's common knowledge now. Yeah.
But the point is, like, I always remember that as like being a dad, as that being the most important thing with a newborn baby. So that kind of went with me.
Well, when I first held my firstborn, Charlie, like I say, I was 23. I was really inexperienced, and I went to pick her up, and somebody said, "Make sure you hold her by the head." So I did, and then they went, "Not just by the head."
But not being funny.
Not true. That's not true. That's just a silly joke I just made up. Thank you very much.
I don't know, but you say it's not true, but there would be literally somebody in the world, because there's millions of people that would have taken that advice literally.
So no, that didn't really happen.
One of my overriding memories of being a father, of one of the things I remember most, was that point in my child's growth of them not requiring nappies anymore. Because at that point, I remember that became so much of a sort of financial freedom that we didn't have to go buy, because nappies, we used disposable ones.
Mm.
At that point, when we stopped doing
You
that,
bastard. Do you not
yes.
care about the planet?
Well, I was younger, and it was before anybody gave a shit about it. Before Greta Thunberg, anyway. So
Mate,
it was.
I care about the planet, but I'm not washing stuff that's been shat in every day.
Yeah, but weirdly, you and I were probably in that period where our parents used like washable nappies. I can't
Yeah.
imagine what life would have been like, because I know I remember like with my younger sister nappy liners, which was stuff that you put inside a toweling nappy. But I always remember this great big bag of fucking soiled towels that was just full of baby poo. I mean, that's fucking disgusting. Right?
I mean, I was the youngest, so there was none behind me, and I remember walking past a bucket where the ammonia took the layer off the front of my eyes. Do you know what I mean? It's not a good thing. Fuck it. It's just not disposable nappies are the way forward. But interesting what you said there about that moment where you no longer have to pay for nappies.
Yeah,
it's just like, Jesus, I've got all this money I didn't know I was missing because I've got this. And there's another stage beyond that, Baz, which is just like when I know you only had one, but when your last kid learns to wipe their own arse, is one of the so you know what people say that the day your child is born is the best day of your life. No. The best day of your life is when your youngest learns to wipe their own arse and you don't have to do it anymore.
I do this quite often, but I'm going to do it again.
It's mate.
You're quite right. You're quite right.
It's absolutely. It's like freedom. It's like a little. I haven't got there yet, but it's like a little taster of the feeling it must be when your kids leave home and you got your life back. It must be the same. Like it's a little bit of a taster of what that's going to be like. I think.
I've got another question for you.
Yeah.
As a dad of one and parents of one, we reached a point where we stopped swearing in front of our child when her ability to pick up words picked up the word fuck. You had that for much longer because you obviously had two living in the same house with you with Emma. Your swearing, like the point where you don't swear anymore must have sort of like carried on for much longer.
Well, we I think that we didn't swear around her right from birth.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? And we were just like, we were quite, I don't think it was a conscious thing. I think it was just it's going to be easier if we just kind of get used to this instead of having we can swear up until the moment where the child's first word is bollocks. Yeah. And then we're like, oh, we've probably made a mistake there. So we just decided not to swear in front of her, like pretty much from birth.
Yeah.
So we didn't have like a cut off on that, but we have like I say now they're 13 and 15. We've had the cut off at the other end where it's like I don't even filter my swearing in front of the kids anymore. I know that they both know. I know they go to high school. I know they probably know more swear words than I do. Right? Yeah. They know that if they use them in front of me, I'm going to bollock them.
Yeah.
So the fact that I sometimes use swear words or curse words in front of my kids is completely irrelevant because we all we've never mentioned it, but we all understand the relationship in that if either of my kids swore in front of me, I bollock them.
Yeah.
But, it's kind of like I can't exactly pretend I don't swear when my youngest son listens to all the podcasts.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
I think that might have been the tipping point a couple of years ago when he started listening to the podcast. I'm just like, I can't really deny that I swear, can I? So
swearing's a really good one because, like, I genuinely believe, and I was one of these people, I understood what swear words were when I was quite young, and it was particularly in my early teens. But I would never swear around my parents, and I'd swear in the street, and I'd get told off by people that weren't my parents for swearing in the street, which always...
Did a policeman give you a clip round the ear back in those days, Baz?
Genuinely, yes. I mean, yeah. I got taken home by a policeman to my mum, who, and I'm one of those kids that grew up where if you got taken home by a policeman to your mum, that policeman was your best friend until he left, and then your mum took over, and she was fucking 20 times worse than that policeman.
Baz, I just imagine when you were a young child, this policeman in a top hat with a cane took you home to your mother and say, Mrs. Wright, I need to report that your son has been heard saying the word vagina.
Bloody. But it's true though. It's one of those things. I think children know where not to swear, and mostly, and it's one of those things. I think even you were today, if you saw some 12-year-old kid swearing in the street, you may say something because it's that kind of self-policing thing that adults do with other people's children.
Yeah, if I heard a 12-year-old swearing in the street, I probably wouldn't say anything, but I would do the very British thing of disapproving loudly.
Yes.
And tut so hard, I'd probably pull a muscle in my neck or something like that.
I think it's a really important point as well, because there are lots of people that say, "Oh, I don't swear around my children," but there are a lot of people that do swear around their children. And I don't think the end product is any different, if I'm being genuinely honest.
Yeah, I don't know. Look, I don't think it is a good look as a parent. Look, I'm not judging anyone. I'm just saying my personal opinion.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a good look as a parent, personally, if your 5-year-old in the supermarket turns round and calls you a dick. Or fucking arsehole or something like that.
Yeah.
Look at me showing off at the swear words, I know. I know more. I do. I'm not going to say them, though. Not just yet.
You'll hear some bleeping on this one.
Yeah. If you want to hear more swear words, you need to go to buymeacoffee.com/mildlypod and buy me a pint.
There you go.
The more pints I have, the more sweary I get.
Oh, we should do that.
Yeah, I just don't think it's great, to be honest, kids swearing. And do you know what? But do you know? I remember. I remember we. When was it? It was November 21. It would have been when we were recording a TV show with Mr. Richard Hammond.
I was about to bring up the same thing. Yeah.
He said that he doesn't stop his kids swearing. He praises them for using them in context.
Yes.
Just like with any other word of the language. So if they use them in context, he's like, yeah, that's okay, because it's the English language and you are using them in context. So his example, like, we were chatting about this and I was like, I'm not sure about that. And he was like, look, if they're writing and the pencil snaps, and they go, for fuck's sake, at the top of the voice, I'll be like, that's maybe not right. Do you know what I mean? But, if they drop something on the foot and say shit, he's not going to call them out on it either. I just thought it was quite of a... I mean, he said, he mentioned that he'd been called into the school because one of his kids swore at school. He got called in. He was like, yeah, they swear at home. What's your problem?
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's a really good point, because... genuinely, one of my daughter's first words was "fuck." Honestly.
Sorry, Baz. I've just realised that we've done this episode on the premise of giving people parenting advice, and you're now telling me that one of your daughter's first words was "fuck."
But on the back of that, we realised at that point, we kind of went, right, we need to now rein it in, because that's what I was saying to you earlier about at what point
do you stop?
Yeah, and that was our point. And to be fair,
I think you've answered your own question there. At what point do you stop swearing in front of the kids? When their first word is "fuck" is a great example.
But the point was with that is, once we stopped it stopped being like a word that she used, and even like as a 32-year-old now, she doesn't swear in front of me very often. I didn't swear in front of my mum ever.
Yeah.
No, it's not true. And much later on I did, but in front of my dad, I swear like he does. So we. At what point do you think, in your own mind, would it be okay for your kids to swear in front of you?
I don't know, because I'm the same, Baz. I'm 48 years old and I don't swear in front of my mum.
Yeah.
I mean, the odd shit might I nearly said the odd shit might slip out, but that's
Yeah, that's a bit.
that's just like look. She grew up with me. I grew up living with her and going on heavy nights out. That's happened plenty of times, right?
We'll save that for the incontinence episode.
That's not what I meant. No, I mean, I'm less active in stopping myself swearing in front of my mum than I used to be.
Yeah.
But I still don't swear in front of my. But and that's. Do you know what? That's not because I don't think that's because of a mother-son thing. I just think my mum doesn't swear, and it's the same as like if I'm in an environment where people don't swear or don't curse, I probably would do so less. And do you know what? I think it's a really interesting point. Is that it is definitely something you can control. Because if you look at professional football, right? Professional footballers swear on the pitch and they get away with it unless it's directed directly at the referee. On a rugby pitch, if you swear at all, you can get whatever punishment it is. I don't know what rugby is. I don't know rugby, but apparently you can get whatever punishment just for swearing.
Sin bin.
And the argument is, oh, well, football, it's the passion, it comes out and all that. And the people say that with, because you look at how out of control football managers are at some points. They lose their shit.
Yeah.
And they will be going nuts. They're going like veins popping out of their head, screaming in anger over something that's happening in the game.
Yeah.
And people are saying, yeah, but it's the passion. It's and kind of football's worth a lot. Well, I used to work for a company that was worth like $15 billion. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I would be in board meetings when the shit was hitting the fan. Do you know what I mean? And, really serious things were happening and people's jobs were on the line. Not one person swore in any of those meetings.
Yeah.
They kept control. It is something you can keep an eye on. And like you said, it's something when you've got kids that you make a conscious decision to do. And when you've made that conscious decision not to swear in front of the kids, you don't.
Yeah.
It's doable. Do you know what I mean?
It's kind of weird though that I when I first got onto TikTok, I followed a channel on there where the mother of 3 children swore quite a lot, and a lot of the comments in her videos were like, "Oh, you're such a bad parent. You swear in front of your children." And then she'd quite often say to her children, in videos, "Do you swear?" And they'd all go, "No, we don't." They understand that swearing is an adult concept, and I think kids understand, and parents do go, look, swearing's a grown-up thing. You could do it when you're a grown-up, but I think most kids understand that.
They do, but if you don't swear in front of your kids and you don't, you'll get at least 10 years out of them where they don't really know swear words, so they can't slip into conversation at awkward points. Do you know what I mean? I mean, the last thing you want is, at the bloody, I don't know, at a family wedding, and they're like, like the flower girl who's 6 walks in, drops the flowers, and says, "Oh shit!" No, because those would be the occasions where it does slip out where it's not expected, and it's definitely not an occasion where it would be acceptable. I don't.
Yeah, but these days that's a viral video, isn't
it? Yeah.
What other advice have you got for parents? Let's stick with new parents. What else would you give as advice?
Okay, well, here's one. The whole thing of like what's your kid's bedtime, and is this normal and not? Just stress less when you're bringing up your kid is a better thing to do. And I don't know how I've done it, but I've literally just stumbled upon some actual advice now. So listen carefully.
Well,
if you stress less bringing up your kid is going to be happier. Right? And if that means you don't worry about what bedtime, I'm not saying like keep your 4-year-old up till 3 a.m. or whatever, but if you give a bit more leeway, and I was quite a strict parent, so this is literally with the benefit of hindsight. If you stress a lot less about the things that don't matter when you're bringing your kid up, your kid's going to be way happier growing up and way more balanced when they do grow up.
Yeah, well, see, that kind of varies a little bit for kids that are brought up in dual parenting families where they've got separated parents, because there's definitely a point, not in everybody, but in some people, where there's a kind of one-upmanship, or there's a kind of allowable thing where you curry favour by allowing your children as a sort of like as a single parent to do stuff that the other parent doesn't do. That's got to be fucking more confusing than having two parents together, right?
Oh, I don't know. Like, in spite of what I just said, if you are, if the parents aren't together, you be the good one. Let them do what the fuck they want. You be the good guy. Well, undo all the other parents' hard work of getting them into a routine. You be the good guy. Give them McDonald's fries at 11 o'clock at night. Let them go to sleep whenever they want. Let them watch whatever's on TV. Don't worry about it.
Well, it kind of brings up that thing. It's a kind of serious point, but people that have a good like a network or a support group in their sort of bringing up children. So parents that have like parents that have parents that are willing to look after their children probably have it much easier than parents that don't have that support network. So, which does include like getting a babysitter then. So like with Bryony, we had a lot of support from my ex, from her mother's mother. Yep. So we'd have so even when we went on holiday for the first time, we took her mother's mother with us so that she could look after the child when we went out and got pissed at night, which is lovely.
That is incredible advice, Baz.
Yeah, but there are some people that don't have that. So there's got to be a massive difference between how you bring up children when you don't have that support network. So, say you've moved to another town and your parents parents are like miles away. That's probably the point at which you then have to do that whole trust thing about, babysitters and stuff like that.
Yeah, and look, that is a really valid point, Baz, but I'm going to come back to the very good point that you said about if you want to get pissed on holiday, you've got to take someone to look after the kids.
Yeah.
Because I tell you what, is a very important point that people who haven't had kids yet or have got very young kids, you probably won't enjoy your holidays for years. Because you'll be woken up way earlier than you wanted to. Traditional holiday destinations are the potentially most hazardous places because a lot of foreign countries don't have health and safety rules as good as we do.
Yeah, true.
There's marble floors, marble stairs. There's a pool for them to fall into. If you're the type of parent who worries about everything, you will be on pins all day. You will be like on high alert the whole day. Okay. So if you take the mother-in-law with you to take over in the evening and you can go and relax and have a few drinks, I think that sounds a brilliant thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
As long as the mother-in-law knows she's got to stay the fuck out of the way for the entire day until she comes and takes the kids and looks after them while you go out. As long as that's the arrangement, I think that's a great idea.
Which moves us swiftly along to kids clubs and kids entertainment on holiday.
We briefly mentioned this before, haven't we, Baz? It's just if you haven't heard that episode,
go and find it.
Kids entertainment on holiday is just like the point that I made previously is that when they try and get you up and entertaining, when they have a disco or whatever, and they go, "Come on, kids, grab your parents." Very early on in your children's lives, let them know that if anybody says, come on, kids, get your parents," it's as important for them to say no to that as it is to say no to strangers. Right? Because a parent sitting down, having a few beers at the end of the day, having worried all day, has now got a children's entertainer to take over the responsibility of looking after the kid, and they want a few beers.
Well, the irony is that your social media account is called Dad Dancer, so this would have been perfect for you when you were on holiday, wouldn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've confused lots of people with my social media being called Dad Dancer because they expect me to be a dancing dad.
Yes.
But yeah, no, I'm a dad. And I call myself Dad Dancer because I dance like a dad, and I have done since way before I was a father.
So I've got a question for you, and obviously people that have never seen that particular video, have you ever done the worm with your kids?
Yes,
brilliant.
Yes, I have, and I remember a time when it was Emma and I had a 10th anniversary party. at a local hotel. And my eldest daughter was 17, I think. And it got to that stage of the night, where the dance floors ended up as a circle. And there's people that, and then one person will go in, do a little bit of a dance. Everyone's a bit pissed. And like one person will go in, do a little bit of a dance and come back out of the circle. And another person will go in and do a little bit of a dance in the circle and come out. And then I just thought, like, this might embarrass her, but fuck it, I'm going to give it a go. So I was stood on the edge of the circle. I just dropped down face first and then did the worm across the circle and then stood up. And I turned around and looked at Charlie. And she loved it. she was just like, yes, Dad. I was like, there we go. It was a high-risk strategy, but it paid off.
Right, let's go back to some more advice. I've always given the same advice we spoke about at the beginning of this episode of saying, do you know what? Like, don't listen to advice. Like, people have been having kids for thousands of years and they've managed to do it without anybody else giving them instruction books and videos and stuff like that. I've always said to people as well, those people that give you all the stuff about, oh, it's going to be shit. You're never going to sleep again. Do you know what? Fuck those people, because they're the sort of doom merchants, aren't they? Oh yeah, you can't.
That was me at the start, wasn't it, Baz?
Well, no. You were at least sort of doing it from a point of view where you're looking after your own kids. But there's people that come up to you and go, Mike, listen, here's one thing you never do as a parent: never leave them on their own because they'll get taken by paedophiles. There's loads of people that just give you that warning, like you don't fucking know that. Do you know what I mean? It's so bizarre.
I was going to leave her out in the garden for the night. Do you know what I mean? It's like fresh air is good for her and all that.
Yeah, she's taken up hiking at the age of 4.
Yeah, you will get loads of people who will just go like, "Oh, it's shit," and do you know what? Everyone knows that. Do you know what I mean? That is the worst piece of advice. Somebody coming up and saying, "Oh, you're not going to get much sleep at the start," and all that. Yeah, we know. Yeah. Hell, it was like it's going to be shit. Do you know what I mean? That's like going up to someone at a funeral and going, "Oh, you're going to be upset for quite a few weeks. Might even turn into months. You're going to feel very lonely." It's like, fuck it, yeah, I know. All right, that's not advice. The best advice I could genuinely give, and it's taken to the end of this podcast to come up with some genuine advice. Okay, I mentioned it briefly before, but if you are about to have a kid or you've just had a kid, you will, because that kid is just the center of your universe, you will think that every single decision you make is important and is going to change that kid's life for the better or the worse. It's not.
Yes.
All right.
You'll find your way, won't you? You'll find a way of making your kids survive. And there are millions of billions of kids coming along soon.
And it just on the back of that one, just before we finish, is if somebody does come to you when your child is very, very small and say, "Oh, you shouldn't be picking your child up at that time of night, you should be doing this," it's like hand them the child, go to bed and say, "Right, you fucking bring it up." And on that bombshell, that's where we'll leave it for another week. So thanks for tuning in to the Mildly Controversial podcast. Listen, if you got any value from that, be it a smile, be it relating to something, or be it a tiny little bit of advice that sneaks in at the end, then please let us know and buy us a pint at buymeacoffee.com/mildlypod. That's it for this week. Thanks again, Baz, for being here. Really enjoyed that one. Really enjoyed your company as always.
Thank you, sir.
And thanks for listening, and we will see you next time.
Ta-da.
Bye.